I want to thank you for coming to our 6th annual Hip Hop and Politics Symposium. I'm Congressman Andre Carson from the great Hoosier state of Indianapolis, Indiana. Now, what we want to do is highlight not only how influential hip hop has been in the public sphere, but raise the greater question, how can we, in a very real way, in a very Socratic way, use our numbers and use the influence of hip hop to impact change in the country and the globe. So, having said that, I hand it over to our esteemed moderator, the legend herself, former executive director of the Congressional Black Caucus, Angela Rye. Give it up.
Good afternoon, everyone. I know there are more than 3 people in here because I see you. Good afternoon. That's much better. Maybe I should say what's up, since this is the hip hop panel. Good afternoon, everyone. We're so happy to have you with us for hip hop and politics. So the panel is starting. So what I'm going to ask you to do is close one of those doors because I have ADD a little bit, so I'm not going to be able to concentrate with all that noise. Just one of the doors. Thank you. First, I want to recognize any VIPs in the room. We have one listed, Grouchy Greg, the founder of allhiphop.com.
Yeah.
Happy to have you with us. Peace and all that. And I also want to thank Congressman Carson, who has done this panel every year for the annual legislative conference because he's so hip hop. So thank you, Congressman Carson, for doing this. So today we're going to have family talk with some great panelists who are going to talk to us about the intersection, the very important intersection of hip hop and politics. So I'm going to run briefly through the bios of our panelists today. First, you all know this man. He needs no introduction. He's a legendary music icon, Rakim, who is universally referred to as one of the masters of the microphone. Rakim first came onto the scene with the release of iconic Eric B. as President in 1986 with longtime collaborator Eric B. The single marked a turning point in the rap world, raising the bar for future MCs and revolutionizing the way rhymes are delivered to this day. Oh, okay. Amen, church. Amen, church. Again, he needs no introduction, but Billboard, Rolling Stone, MTV, and a host of others consistently referred to Paid in Full as the greatest hip-hop album of all time. Ladies and gentlemen, Rakim. Next is someone who is like a brother to me, and we fight accordingly.
Wait,
No, I have this. You're not moderating.
Are you going in your over here? Oh, okay.
I got this. I'm going in order.
Well, we're arguing like you just said.
I know, but
bio.
I need you to hold what you got. Hold what you got. I love him, y'all. But this is Teray, who also needs no introduction. I haven't even started the panel yet. He's the co-host of MSNBC's The Cycle. He is a noted author. We are right now waiting for his book on Nas, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. But of course, you may know that he also wrote a great book on Prince. He's also the author of Who's Afraid of Post-Blackness, because guess what? We're still not so post-racial. And it was named one of the most notable books of 2011 by the New York Times and Washington Post. Teray, welcome to the panel.
Thank you, Angela.
Next on my list, before he says something else to me, on my list is Reverend Lennox Yearwood. He's the president and CEO of Hip Hop Caucus and a proud graduate of the University of the District of Columbia and Howard University School of Divinity. For all the HBCU grads in here, graduated from 2. In 2004, he founded the Hip Hop Caucus to build a sustainable organization for hip hop politics. He's been successfully bridging the gap between communities of color and environmental advocacy for the past decade. Rolling Stone declared Reverend Yearwood one of our country's new green heroes. Give it up for Reverend Yearwood. Now we know that ladies are normally first, but going on my list, we're definitely third here, or fourth. But this lady also needs no introduction. MC Light, the noted not only is she a noted lyricist, inspirational speaker, DJ, pioneer, icon, veteran, author, entrepreneur, she is also bad, y'all. This lady in these braids today and these glasses and this fashion, I'm telling you, she gives us life regularly with the attire. I'm loving this. And she also is going to have wonderful things to say. I got to share the stage with her last year. As you all know, she is the first rap artist ever to perform at New York's historic Carnegie Hall, the first female rapper to ever receive a gold single, the first female solo rapper ever nominated for a Grammy, and in 2006 became the first solo female rapper to be honored and inducted on VH1's Hip Hop Honors. Author of Unstoppable, Igniting the Power Within to Achieve Your Greatest Potential. She is truly a role model to women and respected, and also a role model for men everywhere. Yes. Next, ladies and gentlemen, she's been on the ones and twos this afternoon, Miss Beverly Bond. In 2006, Beverly founded Black Girls Rock Because They Do, obviously, a multifaceted empowerment organization for women and girls. Thank you, Beverly. The organization has developed incredible youth enrichment programs, launched a global think tank, and produced a highly acclaimed organization, again, Black Girls Rock. She's been listed among Ebony Magazine's Power 100 from 2008 to 2012, making it 5 consecutive years that Bond has been recognized as such. She's been in Essence Magazine's 40 Fierce and Fabulous Women Who Are Changing the World, placing her in the company of such notables as First Lady Michelle Obama, Oprah Winfrey, Beyonce, and so many others. Beverly, thank you for being with us today. Next, we have Freeway Rick Ross, one of those rare figures whose experience as a drug kingpin has led him to a life of rebuilding the community he once helped to destroy. That sounds drab, but he's gonna have some awesome things to tell y'all. Ross was a key figure in VH1's Emmy-nominated documentary, Planet Rock: History of Crack and Hip Hop, featuring Snoop Dogg, RZA, and B-Real of Cypress Hill. Currently in the process of creating the feature-length film of his life story with of his own documentary, Crack in the System, and creating his autobiographical book. The legacy he wants to leave behind is to be known as an inspirational mentor to people rather than the old Freeway Rick Ross. Ladies and gentlemen, give him a round of applause. And last but certainly not least, because Teray, we are finally back in order, is a sister friend to me, the wonderful Valicia Butterfield Jones. I am so proud to say her most notable recent accomplishment is she is now a new author of a great book that is only $20. It's $20, right, V? Self-published. It's called The Girlfriend, and it is a great book on how to be an awesome, successful woman in the entertainment industry. I encourage you to buy it. You can buy it online. Yes. Shameless plug for my sister. Award-winning political strategist, women's activist, author, and lifestyle expert. She's also the co-founder and chair of the Women in Entertainment Empowerment Network. It's known as WEEN, and the chief executive officer of Airlight Productions. She's been recognized by Essence, Ebony, Jet, the Business Insider, TheRoot.com as a leading executive in the United States and profiled by Glamour magazine. Okay, so here we are. We're gonna jump right in and then we're gonna open it up for questions because again, this is a family conversation. It's jam-packed, have a big family, but let's do this. So I wanna first talk about the intersection of hip hop and politics and activism, right? In early August, our lives were forever changed by a story that so many of us saw, but we saw before, and some of us just didn't record it on our mobile devices. In Ferguson, Missouri, we lost a young man named Michael Brown. And we saw what people often call hashtag activism on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, people reminding you that Black Lives Matter. And I want to just stop right there and have you all address that because without hip hop, we probably wouldn't have that type of creativity and activism, right? If we didn't have the people behind the mics and in front of the mics saying this is something that really matters to elevate that discussion, we probably wouldn't have that. So I want you all to give your thoughts on Ferguson and on how over time hip hop has had everything to do with our activism since its creation. We'll start with Beverly Bond.
Okay. Wow. I'm not used to being the one to start. Well, the people who spoke out about Ferguson, it definitely did start in social media. And I remember it specifically because I remember looking for it on the news and not seeing anybody talking about it, but going on social media and seeing people like recording what was happening. Would I say that in that particular moment when it started to get recognition, yes, the hip hop generation has something to do with it, but I think it was just the people. So I don't necessarily know if that was something I'm going to attribute just to hip hop, although I do think that activism through hip hop is absolutely possible. But I would also caution that we not give too much credit, especially when we don't see enough activists, especially through our artists.
I agree with Beverly. I remember the feeling of nervousness and unrest that I felt with Ferguson. And for 3 nights straight, like you, Beverly, I was on CNN and other networks and saw no coverage. And then the coverage that I did see was so inaccurate based on the hashtag and following the Ferguson hashtag and seeing what was actually happening on the ground. And I have to be honest, and I'm a hip hop head for life, but I was disappointed with most of our artists in terms of Ferguson. Now, I was the National Youth Vote Director for President Obama for 2012, and I can say hip hop stood up. And hip hop was a huge factor in determining our first African American president and his reelection. So hip hop has played a tremendous role in the work being done in our communities. But as far as Ferguson, I was actually disappointed.
Excuse me. It's so funny because I think, Valisha, you were the one who Instagrammed something about it, and that gave it validity to me. And then all of a sudden, I was on it trying to find out as much information as I could. But I will have to say, those in hip hop who have chosen activism from the very beginning are still very active.
Yes.
Right.
And Talib Kweli showed up on the set
Yep.
and made himself seen and heard, and was it was very inspiring for me to see him there. This generation of hip hop, they have to be taught how to be activists within our communities.
Yes.
So before you chime in, I just want to push back a little bit. And one artist that I'm thinking about in particular of this generation, MC Light, is J. Cole.
Yep.
And I'm bringing him up because he went to Ferguson, was on the ground in Ferguson, didn't want any recognition for being in Ferguson, and then wrote a song that BET used in documentary-like coverage on Ferguson.
Yep.
So I think we need to be careful about, the blanketing of all artists.
The compartmentalizing
Yeah,
of
that's
this generation. Yeah, I stand corrected. And there are so many more that are speaking a good word that aren't seen at all.
That's right.
So there is a conscious rapper that exists. And for J. Cole, I commend him for even representing us as well as he does. And in addition to that, telling the truth, because that's what hip hop is about. It's about being the news correspondent for what is happening in the community.
I mean, I think that in a lot of ways, both of you are right, and it really, I don't think the question really rests on which rappers or hip hop figures actually physically went to Ferguson, because obviously we can speak about Ferguson from anywhere, but already the hip hop ethos is already baked into our generation. All the folks who are watching it, who are MCs and who are just regular civilians, we already have imbibed that hip hop ethos and learned from hip hop how to respond to these situations by watching Chuck D and Talib and Mos Def and other folks from before, Poor Righteous Teachers, Arrested Development, on and on. And part of the thing that I think about, especially sitting here with my brother, is that the ethos of hip hop, especially in the 80s, was of the self-crowned king, right? Nobody told him that he could be Rakim Allah, that he could be a king. He just stepped on the scene, as so many brothers, Big Daddy Kane, etc., did in that moment, and said, I'm a king. Why? Because I said so. And we saw not a differentiation. He's a king and we're lesser than him, but we also can be kings together. And we think back to the early hip hop, the things they used to say were not just shout out your borough, but, you know, I love myself and call back that. I take care of myself, call back that. I make my own money, right? And call back yourself. And so those sort of self-esteem exercises, that idea that Black Lives Matter was crucial, especially in that 80s hip hop era and the early 90s. And that is already baked into us when we encounter a Ferguson as adults.
That's good.
So, one of the things I just want to say, Angela, I want to thank you off the jump for the question. I want to thank you for that because I'm always so afraid of these conversations going into one, just rappers or just into lyrics. And hip hop is much bigger than that. And so that's the first thing. And I second want to thank you for jumping in and mentioning J. Cole, because I think that for me, being in hip hop caucus and seeing the institutional aspects of the movement, I'm always afraid that I always see what Fox puts out there and other elements put out there about hip hop, and I see the power in hip hop. See, I saw the J. Cole, and I saw the Nelly, and I saw all the local artists who were in St. Louis who are still there after other orgs have left. They were organizing last night, making sure that we can bring Darren Wilson to trial. So to me, I see these young artists and these young activists who are in hip hop, who are part of Occupy Wall Street, who were out there and Don't Drown, Occupy and Don't Drown on Wall Street, Flood Wall Street this past weekend. I've seen these artists who were there, who would continue the Dream Defenders, who were there part of with maintaining Trayvon. I've seen all hip hop put forth news stories. So to me, it gets frustrating for us to be down on us, because I'm around these artists, if we don't believe in the artists, then how will they get involved in the process? So I see so many artists, and then not even the J. Cole's, but the Series X and other artists like that who are putting out videos over and over and over again. So I just want to say this regarding Ferguson and Trayvon and Oscar Grant and Sean Bell.
Keep going.
And Amadou Diallo. It is hip hop. And Eric Garner. It is hip hop that push that forth. And it is hip hop that creates the accountability, because we're not just quote unquote part of the system. Just don't feel so friendly around us. They don't get so cushy that we just gonna forget about it. So I just want to say that in these issues of life and death, life and death for our young black men and black women, and from Detroit to Chicago to all around, that it is the culture and it is the hip hop and the poetry that sometimes puts forth a message that is life changing, that deals not with only equality, but with existence. And so for me, we need to have a conversation of how do we strengthen that part of hip hop? How do we build our institutions in hip hop? How do we really put forth artists like who I know does so much as far as the scholarships she does at Wisconsin and other artists who are doing things? How do we put forth those aspects to move our culture forward, not letting those discuss our culture for us?
Amen.
That's very good. So, since this is hip hop and politics, you all know that we also have our politics. And since this is a hip hop panel, he shouldn't mind the reference of being a real OG. But we have Democratic Whip Steny Hoyer in the room. And last year he gave some great remarks, so I'm hoping he'll do that this time.
That was great.
Thank you, buddy.
Hey, Angel.
Hi.
How you doing? Good to see you.
I can introduce you as real OGs.
Right. Swanza Goff. Where's Swanza? Raise your hand. She's the floor director. She's in the back there. And I said, do you think I ought to wrap this? She said, I'm leaving the room if you try. I came in, last speaker, I'm sorry, give me your name.
Reverend Yearwood.
Reverend Yearwood was speaking. And he talked about poetry, and I thought about what Robert Frost said. He said, politics is about the grievances. Poetry is about the grief. You know, I like to think I can speak pretty well, give a pretty good speech. I've been at this business some time. But you know, I know that there are ways to communicate that I don't have the mastery of. I know there's age groups and their cultures who listen in different ways and hear different things when people say things. And that's why it's so important for us to communicate with people in the way they hear, in the way they listen, in a way that will motivate them. That's why I try to get to this forum every year. Because the message needs to be delivered.
That's right.
That there is hope. I've got an agenda I call Make It in America. I want every young person, I want every middle-aged person, I want every old person in America. By the way, I fall in that latter category. To believe they can make it in America. Jesse Jackson says, keep hope alive. You've got to keep hope alive, because if you don't have hope, if you have only despair, if you believe there is no future, you will act accordingly. And all of us will be disadvantaged. We were talking about Trayvon Martin as we came over here. That was a miscarriage of justice. Which means it was no justice. Which means that literally millions of people got a message that what happened was all right. It was not all right. And if America is to be the kind of country it needs to be and wants to be and promises to be, it will be because we communicate that message of hope. And hip hop is communicating that hope and that grief and those grievances, so that we understand how we confront it and change it. That's our mission. That's our responsibility. I said we had a group of young people. 2 forums ago, I spoke to a lot of young people. They were like 10, 12, 13, 14. I said, I give a speech on personal responsibility. It's a very short speech. Andre, you'll be glad to hear that. I'm about to end. It's 10 words. They're all 2 letters. If it is to be, it is up to me.
No, that's right.
Hear me. Now you can substitute another 2-letter word, that if it is to be, it is up to us.
That's right.
Working together to make a difference. You're doing that, and we're learning how to better communicate that hope and that vision and that call to action and engagement. Let me end by this. This is the best issue forum held in Washington, D.C., and I venture to say anywhere in the country.
There you go. Thank you.
Every year. Every year.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now let me tell you a little poetry that I remember so well when John Kennedy said it, and I believed it. He said, the energy, the faith, the devotion we bring to this endeavor will light our country and all who serve it. And the glow from that fire can truly light the world. 2 years later, Martin Luther King Jr. said, I have a dream. His dream was the American dream that was unrealized. And he made us closer to realizing that dream. All of you in this room, with all of us up here, working together, can move towards that dream. God bless you. Thank you very much.
That was with no notes. That's why I called him a real OG. Freestyle. Oh, and Congressman Carson is saying this is the character from The House of Cards. It's based off the mystery.
That's
He's not listening. See, that's what he gets.
House of Cards isn't truly based on your life in its entirety. There's some inspiration there, right?
Inside jokes, we don't really think.
I am not Frank Underwood.
Doesn't kill dogs and walk away. None of that. So,
Thank you, Steady.
a minute ago, I heard there's a capacity challenge. So if you have an open seat next to you, because that's really all it's about, all the people along the wall. If you have an open seat next to you, just raise your hand. Oh, we got some. Are they walking out? Okay. So for the folks that are staying in that area, if you're not media, if you don't have a camera, can you make your way to the seats with the folks with the hands raised?
Wait.
And there's seats over here too. So all these people up against this wall in the back by John Haysbert. That was a call out. Do you all have cameras? Come sit down, please. Trying to address the capacity challenges. Okay. So let's get back to the substance of the panel. Sorry for the distraction in the back. One thing I want to get to is what we call nowadays old school hip hop. Right, Kim, we haven't talked yet. And I would love to hear from you about the importance of activism then and now. What you're not seeing now, what you are seeing now, what you're inspired by. We want to hear you talk.
Well, I think the difference between then and now, a lot of rappers was a lot more conscious of themselves and what was going on in the neighborhood. And at that time, it was like a perfect time for us to start getting deeper and more knowledgeable into what we was doing. You know what I mean? Early hip hop, it was hip hop, the hip. And shortly after that, we realized what we had and started, crafting the genre and crafting our skills as well, and noticing that we had a forum to speak. Rappers like myself, we try to convey a message, bring a little consciousness to what we thought may have been wrong, and it caught like wildflower, wildfire. A lot of rappers understood what we was doing. They felt the energy from it. They felt the seriousness of it. They seen the effect that it had on the people that was listening to it and getting something from it. And we drove off of that, you know what I mean? It resonated in the neighborhood. We started seeing the neighborhood a lot more conscious. We started seeing people coming out and just showing love and support to a part of rap that a lot of people wasn't understanding, or some may have thought was underground. But me knowing that it was a lot of people in the neighborhood that understood the conscious side of the neighborhood, the politics of the neighborhood, and also just to kind of enlighten people to get to know themselves better. There was a lot of people, gravitating towards that. So a lot of artists started showing that, it was valid in the neighborhood. So I think we need a little more of that. The tables turned a little bit. Hip hop is young again, you know what I mean? In a lot of places, it's just getting there. It's a lot of rappers just young with it. But I think the consumer has to pick and choose and let the artists know that we want a little more consciousness, we want a little more, lyrics, we want the genre to, remain valid. So it's up to the consumer, and it's up to forums like this to acknowledge what some of the positive rappers and some of the positive people is doing. So I think we just need, a little more acknowledgement, just like anything else, like young kids in school when they do good, we gotta find a way to acknowledge it and show that we understand what's going on, and people is taking a stride to be better and show that we can be better. So I think that's what we need.
So my next question I'm going to direct to Freeway Rick Ross. You had a transformation occur, living one type of lifestyle that you now are using as a foundation to teach people to go in another direction. Talk to us a little bit about your experience and why it was important to make that move.
Wow. Well, some people say I'm probably one of the most influential person on the new hip hop that we have right now. There's 4 artists that have made significant in the hip hop industry that has used part of my name in one way or other. One took my whole name. who they say last year was the best artist on the planet. Another one, Freeway from Philly. Another guy named Freeway Rich from Kansas City. Then there's some other guys out of Cincinnati, Ohio, called the Freeway Boys.
Did you get paid for any of that? I'm just wondering.
None of it.
Okay. Just thought I'd ask.
So me being so influential on hip hop, it came back around, and now hip hop became influential on me when I was in prison doing my life sentence, because I started to see guys that kind of took what I was doing and started doing rap with it, selling CDs. Eazy-E them started selling CDs out the trunk. So when I saw him doing that, I was like, wow, they took my game, but they didn't sell the same product I was selling. But what wound up happening is that that lifestyle became the future, that all the rappers right now just about rapping. I mean, it's hard to listen to a radio right now and not hear a rapper talk about how much drugs they sold or how many keys they buy and how many guns they have. So for me to see myself having so much influence on hip-hop and then hip-hop having so much influence on me, that I know now that we both feed off each other. And now what we need is a new generation to start feeding off of the positive and know that we don't have to sell drugs, we don't have to pimp our women, we don't have to shoot guns to be successful. I'm in the ghetto just about every day in somebody's studio, underground. I just left Indiana with Carson, and while I was there, I went to about 3 or 4 studios, and it was just amazing the anger that these young kids rap about. You know, this young guy, he wanted me to listen to him in the booth, and everything he was talking about was how much drugs he was gonna sell, how many times he was gonna shoot his Uzi. So I believe that what we have to do now is convert back to where hip hop is being positive, like Rakim said, and let the people know that this is what we want to hear. You know, we can go in our high schools. Sometimes it's funny because when I go to the high school, the principal, he's standing right there next to me, listening to everything I said. One principal, he walked up to me, and he right before I went on stage, and he was like, "Well, you be careful what you say here." But then I go to the gym to his basketball game, and he got Rick Ross playing on the radio talking about how much weight he's moving and how many guns he got and what his goons will do to you. So it's like a double standard right now, and we as a consumer have to control that and let our young people know that they just got the game twisted a little bit, because what they're trying to do, I understand. And I don't get mad at them about rapping negative, because if when we get mad at them, then they're going to turn off on us. So we definitely got to stay understanding with them and just try to make it better for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question for Congressman Carson. Talk to us a little. We know you used to be a rapper. Well, did you all know that?
Failed rapper.
Well,
I opened up for a few
recovered
people.
rapper.
Yeah.
Maybe recovered rapper, not failed. He now raps on the House floor and whatnot. So can you talk to us a little bit about, he's a good hype man too, in case you missed it while Mr. Hoyer was going, about your panel. So talk to us a little bit about the influence of hip hop in your own politics, in the way in which you govern yourself in the House of Representatives, with the Congressional Black Caucus, in your community, with your constituents. How has that manifested itself in your own politics?
I think one of the reasons why I was so inspired to even do this panel was when I ran for Congress in 2008. Aside from people trying to say I was a terrorist because of my religion, they were pulling up, you know, old footage of me standing on stage saying, "Put your middle finger in the air," and saying, "Do you want this guy representing you in the House of Representatives?" But I was an MC, and what hip hop did for me as somebody who was inclined to write, but I was telling Ra, I said in 1986, 87, when he was talking about constant elevation causes expansion, I said, man, where is he getting this from? And then I started studying 120, and I said, okay, I got it. But then aside from that, I think hip hop, it was a way of me embracing my past and saying I wasn't ashamed of it. It was every girl in my neighborhood who didn't have a role model to look up to, but when they saw MC Light, dissing Sam, or MC Light on the train with the hoop earrings and the mushroom haircut, wanting to be like her. Because she was forceful, she was unapologetic. And it was brothers like myself who happened to be laid back who could look at somebody like Rakim and said, this brother's like me. But not only is he like me, he's saying something positive and intelligent in his lyrics, and it caused me, as a rapper, not wanting to be confronted in the school cafeteria and being embarrassed in front of the girls to pick up a dictionary and speak like I had some knowledge. But on the House floor, I think I have an obligation, I know I have a commitment to give back. Not that I'm, I think the real hip-hop congressman or congresswoman will be when, Rakim becomes a congressman, MC Light becomes a U.S. senator or something like that. Then you'll have the hip-hop member of Congress. But I think for me, what hip-hop does for me, I grew up in the ghetto. I was raised by my grandmother. And for me, hip-hop got me into trouble and kept me out of trouble. But on the House floor, I think it informs and holds me accountable to what I do to give back to the community, whether it's passing legislation on recidivism reduction, whether it's speaking boldly about dealing with our troops who come back from war-torn areas, having to deal with the psychological after effects of having been in Iraq and Afghanistan. I know that mental health is an issue that we still are unwilling to talk about aggressively in our community. I know when I listen to somebody like DMX talk about his demons, that's a way of him expressing himself very boldly about what he's dealing with, and it's his own form of therapy. So when I'm on the House floor in committee, I said, you know what, I need to deal with this issue. I come from a mother who suffered from schizophrenia. DMX is talking boldly about his issue. Let me write some legislation that could respond to the condition that our community refuses to acknowledge. So that's how it affects me.
So I want to pivot a little bit to the ladies on the panel, because each of you have started an organization to help young women in some way, and we have to believe, and I hope that you all will get to this, that this has been shaped by your experience in part in the industry and then just in the real world, right? But there's some way that you all are giving back to young women to make it a little bit easier for them so they don't have to go the road less traveled that you did. So I would love for each of you to talk a little bit about your organization, Black Girls Rock, WEEN, your foundation, and just give us reasons why you started it and talk a little bit about your experience.
Well, I'll go first because I think my organization is the baby here. I've actually was one of the first recipients of the Black Girls Rock Award. Thank you, Beverly Bond. And I also served as a board member for WEEN with Valicia. And so in being categorized as a legend, I used to think, wow, that's old. But I'm okay with it now, and I understand that with that comes responsibility. So it was great to be able to lend my celebrity to those organizations, which I wouldn't stop if those ladies called me, and they do. I will show up. However, I think it was time for me to let God work his way through me so that I could start an organization of my own, and it's called Hip Hop Sisters. And for any of you who want to join the movement, you can visit hiphopsisters.org. Thus far, we've given away 4 $100,000 scholarships to the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Thank you, Reverend Yearwood, for mentioning that. And that is for young women. Our mission is to help to redefine the essence of young girls through education, entertainment, encouragement, inspiration, and whatever we need to do to get through to them. But as of this year, we've added a new initiative, which is called #EducateOurMen. And we are giving supplemental scholarships to young men of color who are attending HBCUs. So I'm extremely excited about the new endeavor. So if any of you need more information, want to get involved, hiphopsisters.org.
I guess I'll go next. I'm the middle baby of this sisterhood. So WEEN, we started the organization in 2007, and I just remembered at 18 years old, starting my career in the hip hop business, working for Wu-Tang Clan. So that tells you how old I am. 18 years ago. And I just remember talking to girls every day on my college campus. I'm a Clark graduate. And they wanted to be in the videos. They wanted to be the video girl. They wanted to be a model. And even now when I speak to young girls and I ask them what they want to do when they grow up, and I'm talking fourth graders, middle school students, high school girls, and I would say 90% of the girls that I speak to say that they want to be in front of the camera. And while there's nothing wrong with it, I just wanted to create an organization that would expose them to the hundreds, if not thousands, of careers behind the scenes in the entertainment business that are just as sexy, just as fly, and can be very lucrative. And so that's why we started WEEN. It's a mentorship organization. Angela sits on the board. I also sit on Light's board, and as she mentioned, she sat on mine as well. And so it's really about giving young girls other options, and then also helping to create balance in the way we're portrayed in the media.
Beverly, before you answer, I have to acknowledge another rapper we had come in the room. I'm going to embarrass him a little bit. He calls himself Congressman Carson's big brother. I call him Work Dad. So the real rapper, also known as Reverend, and Representative Emmanuel Cleaver II. Please stand, sir. Oh! I don't know what that was. That was special just for y'all. Beverly, it's all yours.
I started Black Girls Rock in 2006, and I started DJing in 2000. And as a DJ, I would often have conversations with women about the shift in the way women were being represented and treated, in not just in the videos and in the art, but also in the industry. And I'm nice with mine. So I had a really great reputation as a DJ. No one ever knew what I thought because I was extremely introverted. I still am a little shy, but I got over it a little bit. But I would have these conversations with different women, and it was so disturbing the way in which people would just portray us without thinking about the content. And I started to think about, I'm a grown woman, so I can interpret these messages and navigate through this, but what happens to the little girl that's listening to this? And I remember some things that particularly disturbed me, not to call people out, but when Project Chick came out, and I kept thinking, how is a girl being ostracized because she was born in poverty? And how is this affecting her mind? And I remember, before I was a DJ, I was a model, and I remember being at a party and seeing one of the models that was with my agency, and she was on the couches, and she was toasting it up, and just like this was the best song ever. And I thought, as a woman, how are you not offended? Not because you didn't grow up in this situation, but how do you make fun of someone else's pain and poverty? And so all of these things were going through my mind. And when I started Black Girls Rock, actually I was just coming up with an idea for a t-shirt. And so I was like, this is gonna be a dope t-shirt, Black Girls Rock, And I'm writing down the names of all of the women that I think rock throughout history, from Light to Lauren to Harriet Tubman to, Marion Wright Edelman to, just to join a troupe. I'm just going and writing the names, and it's almost like I'm possessed with it. I'm just writing. And at one point I just stopped. And I was like, yo, this is bigger than me. I'm like, this is bigger than me, and this is not for me. This is for all of us. And at that point, I knew that this affirmation needed to be shared. And I knew that our young girls needed self-esteem, and I knew that they needed to know the role models. They needed to see what role models look like, because at that time, especially in 2006, a lot of times when we would see ourselves, especially in glamorized ways, like you said, it was only as the prop to a male's video or a male's situation. It wasn't even like, being their own sexy thing, It was like a prop to someone else's thing. And I thought, this is just so improper, or they wouldn't see themselves at all. And so, I certainly say that hip hop, Black Girls Rock, was built off of my platform of being a hip hop DJ and being a well-respected hip hop DJ, and having, I'm a heavy hitter. I'm not. Okay, that's my DJ crew, in case you guys don't know. But I was well respected by everyone, including rappers. And when I started this, one of the things that people don't realize is that a lot of the guys and a lot of the men will tell me all the time, a lot of rappers are like, thank you, Bev. Like, thank you for starting this, because somebody needs to say something. And I realized from doing this, you know, when I started mentoring, I started the mentor program, I started the award show and the t-shirts all at the same time. And I had tunnel vision, and I never looked back because I knew that it was all necessary. I knew that we needed to hold our women sheroes in all walks of life up on a platform so that our young girls could see the possibilities of who they could become. And I also knew that we needed to mentor young girls so that they could have the tools that they need to be great, so that they would want to be more than make the video, don't just be the girl in the video, you know? And so, you know, I started with just teaching girls how to DJ, and that morphed into, you know, DJing and then digging in the crates, so they learn culture and music and history. And then that morphed into just a leadership program where they learn economics, they learn coding and robotics, and now it's, you know, it's a beautiful thing to have built this. And, you know, we're still going, and much like Light was our first honoree in 2006, you know, we recognize the need for this kind of programming for men as well. And I'm working with some brothers, and we are launching a program called King Me.
So for those that were asking about where is my Sister's Keeper, it sounds like you have 3 organizations that are doing that work. So let's make sure we're supporting them. I want to switch gears just a little bit, but Beverly, you just made something stand out in my mind, and I think it's good for us to talk about equality and fairness in a workshop like this. So I was contemplating whether or not there's a double standard for hip hop, right? Many rappers speak about their experiences. We know some of them, I'm thinking Trinidad James, kind of changed theirs based on what they think may sell records, no shade. But thinking that there's sometimes, particularly from mainstream society, right, there's a lot of pressure on hip hop artists not to talk about violence, not to get out of the misogynistic kind of culture. But that stuff is on mainstream television shows and mainstream magazines. So why is there more pressure? I shouldn't say why. Is there more pressure, and is there a double standard on hip hop to not do what mainstream society is doing? And I would like to hear from all of you on that. Come on, y'all. Oh, Reverend Yearwood, here we go.
No, it's a great question. Being around a lot of artists, as you know, and seeing them, and me and Alicia used to work together before the caucus at the Hip Hop Summit, way back. We just dating ourselves today. But the thing is this, though, from being around artists, and this is, I think, what Rick Ross was kind of saying with young artists, and what Ray was kind of leading to as well, is this. And the reality is that most artists, particularly young ones, and this is actually Rakim, I think you might get this piece, is that, you know, they are unloved until they become famous. So before Bobby Shmurda or Chief Keef become famous, they're just problems in either New York or Chicago. And not problems for white folk, but problems from black folk. We're not embracing them. And it's amazing to me when I'm around these conversations that when one of them get famous, it's amazing how quickly the establishment from our community changes around them and embraces. But to move to how we are as far as a movement, what I have also seen from Oscar Grant and Sean Bell and Trayvon and now Mike Brown and others, unfortunately, is this. When the movement is strong, so is the movement. But when the movement is weak, so is the music. So when we are strong, the artists actually take your lead more than you would think. When they see you out in the streets, when they see Hands Up, Don't Shoot rallies, that is what propels most artists to get engaged. And they know they are being shaped. When artists saw Trayvon, Rick Ross, the other Rick Ross, put those things, put those things into the lyrics. The reality of where we are then, as a movement, is that how do we make our movement in hip-hop politics strong so that we can shape the policy? And I think, Angela, why your question is so important is this, is that we as a hip-hop generation, and even to some degree as Councilman Carson, you would understand this, as a black generation, we are not shaping policy. Policy is shaping us. So I think that the reality is that what you're seeing, what needs to happen for us and our movement is that we need to figure out, and I'm from Louisiana, I'm from down south, right? So I was told this a long time ago, that either you are at the table or you are on the menu. There is no in between.
Double standard, Teray. It looks like you have notes. Double standard.
I mean,
Is there one?
I remember early in my hip hop journalism career when I was writing a lot for The Source. I never worked there, but I was a freelance part of that community. And Dr. Dre had thrown D. Barnes down the stairs.
And punched
her. But then he punched, excuse me, thank you. He punched her and then she fell down the stairs, which he would also be legally culpable for because she fell down the stairs because he punched her. And I believe it's like 2 months after that, he was put on the cover. And if memory serves, the article made no reference to that. The writer didn't ask him about that, didn't challenge him about that.
Wow.
And I remember, it was around a group of the guys, some of the top guys and some of the medium level guys, and I was like, how do we put Dre on the cover and not even deal with this issue? And they laughed at me, like, how could you even bring that up? You're such an idiot. Did you hear the Chronic? Like, what's wrong with you? I don't know how this changes that. Yes, Ray Rice was a great runner before last season, but what does that have to do with what happened in the elevator? Nothing. And, perhaps there is pressure on hip-hop because it seems easy to try, for people who don't care about hip-hop, to put the screws on us and say, why aren't you better than America is on these issues? Because hip-hop's not going to be any better than America is on these sort of issues. America has a misogyny problem. Hip-hop also has a misogyny problem, right? There's not a disconnect between those things, but I don't really want to dig into the double standard so much as dig into the misogyny problem in hip-hop. And we are very good at demanding racial justice, right? Our rappers and those who are hip-hop allies are really good at demanding racial justice. We have not been nearly as good at demanding gender justice. And we have been fairly regressive on that, from the portrayals of women within hip-hop, the place of women in general within hip-hop, and I mean the MCs who are allowed to make long-term careers in hip-hop, as well as the place that women get in hip-hop songs. And it's very much about a continuation of this national epidemic of a masculinity that requires the domination of women to establish itself. And hip-hop is not self-critical about that. And America, in many ways, is also not self-critical enough about that. And it is a continuing disappointment point for me, vis-a-vis hip-hop. And for a lot of the brothers, you can't even challenge it.
Really quick before you all continue, we have another member who joined us who is so hip-hop. This is Representative Hakeem Jeffries from Brooklyn. Yes.
Also known as Kid Fresh.
Oh yeah, they have rap names. We might have them freestyle at the end if you all stay with me.
Nice.
And I'm serious. I'm not kidding, actually. So we can keep going with the question. But wait. I'm sorry. One more thing. I have an announcement. I have a boss, Omer, wherever he is. So I'm supposed to tell you all to please take a lot of pictures, shoot video, post to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram with the hashtag Hip Hop and Politics. You guys may have already been doing that. If you haven't, you should start now. Otherwise, we're all going to be in trouble with Omer. Carry on.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, I wanted to say something on that too. With hip hop, we always thought hip hop was supposed to be so true and so honest with us. When we were growing up, we looked at it as like that was the Bible. That's what was happening in New York. That's what's happening in L.A. But from what I found out now is that we still have that belief that hip hop is true. But just like he just said right now, Rick Ross, most people don't even know this guy's name. These people lie so much to us, and we believe that this is a fact, that our kids are biting on this as if this is the way that it's supposed to happen. And I believe that we're sending false messages to people that's hopeless. See, our kids right now feel hopeless. They don't feel like that they can compete in society. And I feel like that because I know I was one of those kids. I was one of those kids that didn't think he would be living until he was 24 years old. When I got up every morning, I put my pistol in my pocket, I put on my bulletproof vest, and I say, this might be the day. This might be the day that I go to prison. A couple weeks ago, I was speaking at a junior college in San Bernardino, California, and a young lady came up to me and she said, well, Rick, what I did, I listened to you speak, and from what you was telling me, that you always knew you were going to prison. And I knew that what she said was absolutely true because that's how I felt. Every morning I got up, I felt that this could be the day that I go to prison. So if we're telling our kids something and our kids believe that this is supposed to be true and raw, but the labels who are selling this message, they don't care. See, I just went into a fight over my name last year. I had a fight over my name that was unbelievable. I could not believe that these people spent so much money so that this guy could keep my name, so that it wouldn't go in the public that he was not Rick Ross, that he was really William Roberts. But nobody knows that. I go to the schools and they ask me, why do you change your name? Wow. So it's a bigger picture than what we see. See, like a lot of people don't even know that in my case, the CIA allowed their army to bring cocaine into this country. They don't even know that. And then right after Congress opened up the doors to allow them to fund the Contras again, well, they changed the laws on crack cocaine. It went from being even to powder cocaine to being 100 to 1. That's right. See, our people don't even know that, and those are some of the things that I wonder why our rappers don't talk about that. I mean, they'll talk about Big Meech, and they'll talk about Larry Hoover, and they'll talk about Rick Ross, but they don't talk about our laws, that we have 600,000 men in prison right now for nonviolent offenses. Where women is the fastest growing population in the system, black women are. So with me, I believe that it's important that we start to demand more honesty and let our guys know that, oh no, you're not gonna go out like Jay-Z and sell dope and turn that dope career into a rap career and sit with the president. It ain't gonna happen.
Right.
Big Meech got 35 years. Rick Ross had a life sentence without the possibility of parole, and the only reason he got out is because he went in jail and turned himself into a lawyer.
Yes, sir.
And that's rare. So I think that those are the messages that we should demand our artists to start delivering to our kids.
Right.
Thank you.
The thing that blows me away with the Rick Ross thing, the other Rick Ross thing, is that when it came out that he had been a CEO, or at least trying to become a CEO, that was not the end of his career, right? I mean, like in another era, that would have been the end of his career. You can't talk on the mic anymore because you're a pure liar. But I don't know why that changed now.
Like I said, Trinidad James, but again, no shade. But carry on.
I think speaking on that
Trinidad,
truth, not to cut the queen off.
No, King, you go.
Guess I got to do it then, right? That's right. But yeah, speaking on that truth, I think what it was back in the day, the streets dictated rap. You know what I mean? We followed the lead of what was going on in the streets. If it was the wardrobe, if it was the code of the streets, if it was anything that was going on, we followed the streets, and we let that tell us what to do. And I think that's why we had that connection at that time. They call it the golden era. You know what I mean? I think we was more in tune with what was going on, and we let that direct us as far as what we should do. And I think we should get back to that again by the consumer taking a little more control and letting us know what's right and what's wrong.
Well, part of what you're saying is that when you were a king, when you were making your records at the beginning of your career,
A queen.
The queen, absolutely, yes, absolutely. The dominant consumer was the urban black male, and then in the early '90s, it became the suburban white male, and that changed the tenor of hip hop and those sort of things that somebody could be lying about their past. You could survive, and the sort of artist who was able to thrive in that context was totally different. And you notice the way that we talked about drugs as MCs completely changed. You look at a lot of records from the 80s, and drugs are mentioned as one of the problems. People generally did not say, I was a drug dealer and that was great. When you get to that 90s, when it's suburban white kids who don't generally know drug dealers that well, don't see the problems of drugs that much.
It was easy to say it then.
It becomes easier to be like, yo, I'm a drug dealer, and that seems cool to them.
That's right.
T, you've answered this question 3 times. We need to let the ladies answer now.
Yeah, I would like to jump in. I would say a double standard by who, and I want to agree with what you were saying, is because it feels like it's the same. It's the same system that's creating this, because how they allow certain rappers to get fortune and fame, while others, we say that there are conscious rappers, we say that there are people who have more content, that we say that there are people that are truthful, you just gotta go search for them and seek them out. And that's true that you do, but I bet you if we go out here right now and we turn on the radio, this conversation is not happening in those songs. And I know this because every summer we do a summer camp. We have a van, we have to drive back and forth all over the place. Every time we get in the van, we have to turn the radio down or turn the radio off if the kids are in the van with us. And I will say that our success in hip hop it's really masking a lot of our issues. There are rappers who are extremely illiterate, who can't put sentences together, who can't think about, who can't create metaphors in their music, and we're allowing, we love this so much, right? We love hip hop so much because we really love it. But if we love it, we have to be responsible for it. And we have to make those in it accountable. And that's not just the artists, that's also the record companies and the record executives and the people who are making money off of this. And I would even question who makes the most money off of this.
That's right.
The record labels.
But who are they? Who are they? Chuck D just put up a picture of a Def Jam anniversary of all the executives, and he in the picture didn't look none like us.
No.
And he said, "Who are these people?"
Well, I would agree with Bev. It seems like the annihilation of this culture is being funded by another people.
Yes. Yes.
And, we travel all over the place, and these kids are just as disturbed by this music as we adults are.
Yeah.
If you talk to them, they're not pleased with what they're hearing either. But yet, it's repeatedly played on radio. And yeah, I think some of the people who own shares in record labels also own shares in the privatization of prisons.
Yep. Wow.
So it is their mission to leave us dumb and blind so that they can fill what they have to fill.
Felicia, did you want to add to this? If not, Reverend, you were jumping in. Okay.
Yeah, I'll just go back to Angela's original question about why are we the target? And I think that we have to call a spade a spade. Racism exists.
Yes.
Period. And that's the bottom line. The entertainment industry, the hip hop industry is a culture that manifested itself. We didn't ask for permission. We were unapologetic, and we created an industry out of nothing but pure love for an art form.
Yep.
And now look, mainstream media's caught on. The biggest consumers of the music don't look like us. And so we wonder why we're the ones who are taken to task about being misogynistic when you have the film industry, the television industry, other forms of music. You think about Marilyn Manson, I mean, come on. You know, but we're the ones who are consistently the hot topic purely because of race. And that's the bottom line.
I agree with everything everybody said, and I just want to add this though. I think it's important, and you know, Rick Ross, I just want to say that I agree with you that I wish they would sing about not being gangsters. I agree with you on that, but also I wish they would sing about the real gangsters. Because the real gangsters is the Koch brothers, is Alec, is Fox News,
There you go.
it's the fossil fuel companies, it's the military industrial complex, it's the prison industrial complex. So, I mean, you want to get some real gangsters. Let's get to some real, and let's be being real about how gangster they are, because a lot of times we go into this individual component, but we are here at the CBC at an institutional component. And so if you talk about, for instance, gas, oil, and coal, even though President Obama has pushed for us to transition to clean energy, to cap the carbon, because it's killing our children. The pollution is killing our children. The asthma, the bronchitis, the cancer, all those things are killing our people. And despite that, if you turn to page 2 of your Congressional Black Caucus program, you will see ExxonMobil. If you turn to page 4, you'll see Chevron. If you keep going through the book,
Let me tell you what. I appreciate that. But since you just brought that up, I do need to say this at this time. This is being broadcast live on cbcfinc.org /ALC. And the reason why I bring that up, it's timely, Reverend Yearwood. Just go with me here.
I feel like Nelly getting cut off last I get right.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I felt like when we get ready, we get cut off. It is on? It is on?
No, it's about to get cut off, child. I'm trying to warn you. So here's the situation. We have sponsors of this program, and I do appreciate going green, but let me tell you what's not right. If our pockets don't have any green in them, if we can't get this minimum wage increased, if we can't get the disparities in the wages addressed, like, it ain't gonna be no ExxonMobil ads in these books. So let's just tread a little lightly on that. I'm just saying we just gotta tread a little lightly on that.
Does it matter who's paying?
Yeah, no, what I'm saying is, you can boo, but I'm sorry, you can boo, and there will be time for audience questions in just a minute. But what I'm saying is, we just need to tread lightly. We do have to run this program. We wouldn't be sitting here without the sponsors, and it's not just Exxon, Reverend Yearwood, right? It's everybody. So let's just deal with that.
No, but let me say this.
You can ask your questions momentarily. Finish your point, Reverend Yearwood.
Isn't that the problem though? So if I was an artist and I was rapping and I said those exact same thing, that mic would have got cut just like that. So if I rap about killing my community, I can talk forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. But literally, I mentioned Lockheed Martin and Exxon, and to be honest, and you know, I love you, but they ain't my sponsors. You know what I mean? So
they're not my sponsors either.
I'm not saying they are, but I'm just saying that we're now getting to the real, because if you want to see who controls you, see who funds you. And so I think that what we're dealing with right now is the fact of the matter that we're talking about these young folks mirroring what they doing about how they are being paid by a music industry, being told to say things, and here we are at the CBC ALC, and I just got cut off because I wanted to say the real gangsters are the ones who are killing our community. And so I think until we can have that conversation, until we can divest ourselves from that industry, then honestly, none of this is gonna matter.
Great. Fantastic. Fantastic. So, I'm gonna address it. So, I appreciate everything you said, Reverend Yearwood, and I thank you for that. The audience has some reactions, and we do want to hear from you all. One thing that I think is abundantly important is that we understand that some of those organizations, not Exxon necessarily, but a lot of our Fortune 500 companies, where there are no people that look like us on the corporate boards, where oftentimes there are nobody that looks like us in the C-suite, they still offer our kids scholarships and those kinds of things. We need to figure out how to balance those things so we know how to apply pressure, but we still get what we need to get so that there's upward mobility in our communities. Those things are not either or, they are both and we need to be able to properly address them. Sister, there's a mic right here. We're going to allow people to ask questions at this time to the panel. Ask one panelist. For the sake of time, we do want to get to as many questions as possible. Thank you.
I'm just going to say, in light of what we just heard, I'm the president and CEO of Hip Hop Sisters Foundation, proudly serving MC Light. I have also been the CEO of the Hip Hop Summit Action Network, serving Valisha and Russell Simmons and Dr. Benjamin Chavis, and I love Reverend Yearwood dearly. Here's what I have to say about the conversation we just had. I have been a financial professional for almost 2 decades, and this is a game of chess. It is not checkers. So I think when we make our comments, we just need to be strategic, that we use what we have and the platform that we have as a means to an end. And so, to your point, Reverend Yearwood, I agree with you 100%. If we say something about a sponsor, we get shut down. But if we say we're going to kill each other, then nobody says anything. Well, I say to us, then we need to fund our own organizations like Reverend Yearwood, like Wing, like Hip Hop Sisters, like Black Girls Rock, so we can pay for it and let the music ring. That's all I have.
So since this is an action-based forum, how many people here will write checks to these organizations? Raise your hands. Very good, very good. So that's a great action item out of this forum. So everyone that raised their hands, I hope the people that run the organization see them and get your checks. Ma'am?
Hi.
Omer.
My question is to MC Light. And earlier on, you mentioned that for the Mike Brown activism, you didn't have validity for it until you saw an Instagram post. And my question to that is that placing too much responsibility on hip hop and celebrities in general, that if they don't get involved, all of a sudden a movement no longer has validity?
Well, I'm not really a news watcher, so it was just by chance that I happened to look on social media that day. Do I feel as though it's our responsibility? I think, yeah, like I should know what's happening to our people, to our communities across this land. I think someone had made a comment, is it just about hip hop? Oh, I think Beverly Bond had answered, she doesn't feel like this is just a hip hop thing. This is world over. Like everyone should be concerned, and not just us, not just Black people. Everyone should be, concerned and wanting to participate in fairness and in justice. So it just so happens that everybody up here is preaching to the choir. We're all very involved and participatory in our communities. So it's not really, it doesn't become a chore for any of us to get involved. That's automatically what we do. As for other hip hop artists, I can't really speak for them. However, that's what hip hop was founded on. And it's the realness, which is why when Rick Ross says they're actually getting paid to tell lies, well, we don't really believe them. Someone else does. And so it gets perpetuated and it goes round and round. I hope I answered your question.
Can I speak to that for a second? Because sometimes news comes from multiple sources. Sometimes, a certain lawyer like Benjamin Crump sounds the alarm and folks come running to the cause that he's dealing with, or sometimes the Reverend Sharpton shows up and then the cameras show up rather than the other way around, as they would tell you. But, with Trayvon as one example, national media was not on it. The first, 10 days, 8 days after Trayvon was shot. And I remember folks started bubbling up louder and louder day after day on Twitter, and folks are yelling at me like, why aren't you talking about Trayvon? And you should subvert your segment and just start talking about Trayvon, which is not something that I can do. But eventually it became so loud that I'm hearing it, Tamron's hearing it, the producers are hearing it, and we're going, what's going on here? And then we can start to tune into the story and then get our producers involved in the story. So there's different ways. Sometimes it comes from the community, sometimes it comes from the producers telling y'all, you need to know about this. So it can come from both directions.
And I don't think it's a hip hop artist, it's hip hop culture.
Yeah.
Like the community at this point, we are hip hop, period. Yeah.
Thank you.
So from this point forward, it has to be directed at one person so we can get to as many questions as possible. Thank you.
My thing is, I'm wondering how we can go about promoting social responsibility for those not only in hip hop, but in the media in general. more whites may listen to and purchase hip hop, but at the end of the day, whites go to college. They go and they get jobs, and they're able to get jobs. Blacks tend to make hip hop and the anger and the meanness a reality, regardless of whether they come from deprived or non-deprived communities. They tend to make hip hop a reality in their lives. And I always go back to, I don't know if art imitates life or the other way around, but Prince, he made a song that was very popular some time ago, Future Baby Mama. What impact would it have made if he had decided to say instead, future wife and mother? Instead of future baby mama.
Saray, you want to answer? You wrote a book about Prince. Okay, so we acknowledge the comment. Next question.
Well, I have two questions, and I'm gonna just be brief. I have a question for Rakim and Touré. You were talking about how consciousness back in the day was for rap, and for me, hip hop was the real stories and how it's not real anymore. Well, today, I wanted to know, what is your intake and how do you feel on the introverting that into hip hop today, and how can you decipher with the children, because they are angry, like Rick Ross said, because how do you get them from wanting to be a king to now wanting to die a real nigga? Because that's basically what hip hop is saying. And what he was saying was that what Representative Carson was saying was that he was embarrassed to even pick up a book. So now it is the contradiction that if you are a real nigga, you are the top guy in the neighborhood, but if you are smart, you are a loser, or vice versa. But my other question was to Rick Ross and MC Light.
We only can do one question to one panelist because there's a line behind you, sister. I'm sorry.
Just real quick. Rick Ross
Ma'am,
said,
I'm sorry.
It's just real quick.
I know it's real quick, but there are people behind you.
I really have to know this. Rick Ross said Rick Ross said in his song, I really have, this is a women issue. Rick Ross said in his song that he pretty much took a woman home, gave her a Molly, and you don't even know how the song went. My question to you is, since that was your namesake, and I know that has nothing to do with you, what would you say about that? And also to MC, like, as far as the issue with women.
Okay, I'm sorry. As
far as the issue with women policing women, how would you respond?
Sorry. Just hold it. Omer, can you hold the mic? Okay. Thank you. So, questions. Answer one of the questions, panelists, so that we can get to these other folks.
Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that was crazy that somebody would drop a date drug in somebody's drink and basically rape them. In my mind, I'm like, that's like rape. If he did it to my sister. If he did it to my sister or one of my daughters, I'd be upset.
Okay. Next question.
I'm sorry, can you move? I have the phone. Thank you. Sorry. Hello, my name is Ashley and I'm a journalist. And first I just want to say thank you, Rev Yearwood, for keeping it real. We can't sugarcoat the truth because people are dying. So thank you very much. My question is to MC Light or Beverly Bond. Recently, the New York Times mischaracterized Shonda Rhimes as an angry black woman, which speaks to a lot of times when black women own their power and are assertive and strong and independent and call out social issues and sexism and the patriarchy. They get called difficult, angry, or they get blacklisted in Hollywood, or they get blacklisted in nonprofit boards. Let's be honest, So my question is to you is, how do we resolve this issue of, strong black women being blacklisted, pun intended, and just disrespected and vilified even?
Well, I think in short, for me, we know who media is owned by, and we can't look at them to look at us as the strong black queens that we are of our community. We are actually missing in real life in every facet. In Hollywood, Shonda has her night, and she is able to shine and give lots of African American people jobs. However, when it comes to the culture that I'm from, we're missing altogether. And what it is that we have doesn't represent us all.
Yeah.
So I no longer look to media for anything.
And I just want to add to that I think that black women really stood up in a very strong way to counter that argument. And through Twitter, through blogs, there was a lot of reaction to not just her saying that Shonda Rhimes was an angry black woman, but also saying that Viola Davis's looks were not classically beautiful, which is extremely offensive. I think we just have to continue to speak up, and it's going to get uncomfortable for people as we start to rise and shine, and so we have to be prepared that this is going to happen. I mean, I got the whole feedback from the Black Girls Rock award show. Every year people watch black entertainment television, but they get offended by black entertainment television acknowledging and representing black women in this great positive way. So you're just gonna have to deal with it, but I think that we spoke up in a big way. Thank you.
Okay, first up, I want to thank God for having everyone here and having this panel today, because you guys are magnificent. This dialogue is truly needed. I feel a connection with everyone. I'm just going to make it real quick. I've been in the radio music industry programming radio stations for the last 18 years. I grew up on Rakim, MC Light, lived in Indiana. When Felicia said that you were with Wu-Tang, Wu-Tang was the first group that I interviewed. I programmed stations in Philadelphia, Miami, Tampa, all over, been on the air doing middays, and I just know from running the stations what we encounter. And as you said, there are a lot of good artists out there, but being on the side where I'm programming the radio stations, we're going for ratings, and I'm no longer in that capacity where I'm programming, but I just started to see the hypocrisy of when issues came up, like the Ferguson, like things like that. We want to jump on the bandwagon, but yet we're going to play the songs that are going totally against it. And at the end of the day, the kids are listening to the radio station. So I want to apologize to everyone in the room on behalf of radio, because at the end of the day, we are trying to get the ratings and we're not looking at the moral character, and there are only few programmers out there who really care about that. And I was one of the few females in the business who were doing it. So you have to understand, with the male dominated, with them wanting ratings, and I just want to apologize to everyone in this room. And my question is for Representative Andre Carson. Sorry, I see what we said as far as the people doing things when there are issues, but is there any way that, as far as hip hop and the law and just getting into the schools at an early age, when the kids are learning, so when they get to an adult age, they've been grounded in some type of foundation so they understand how it's important to be be a part of politics?
I think that's an important question. One of the things that we have found is that people aren't outraged until after a bill is signed into law, until after the vote is cast. What needs to happen on the groundwork is for people to express their outrage and be involved in committee hearings, to be involved when legislation is being drafted, and to call your member of Congress or your U.S. Senator immediately and advocate and threaten when they don't support your interest, vote against them. Too many people come to our communities when it's time to get elections, when their vote numbers are low, when the focus group numbers look badly. But what we need to do, once we vote them into office and they work against your and my interests, once they're in office, we should vote them out of office and hold them accountable.
Sir, don't you think that the right does a lot better at expressing their outrage before the bill comes to the floor, and the left is much more quiet and passive, and the way that you're talking about, we express our out after the bill is passed, but the right seems to get angry about anything.
Well, I think the right, to your point, has been much more disciplined in terms of messaging. I think our message is too ambiguous, and I think progressives have played a role in taking particularly the black vote for granted. And so what we're seeing now, as we always see, is in the last 2 weeks before the election, we're seeing huge investments from the DCCC and other groups to get the black vote out, but the engagement needs to be there even after Election Day and the off years as well.
Former Congressman Al Wynn joined us. I saw him come in. There he is. Just wanted to acknowledge him. Next question. Question. Okay, yeah. Yes. Is that a lot of notes? Just question. One question.
Listen, I had a comment, but I'm not even going to
Yes,
go into it.
one question.
No, I'm not going to go into it. So my question is, given the more dispersed nature of hashtag activism and the more widespread nature of that, what are strategies to highlight the power of Black life and strategies to focus the powers of Black expenditure and Black political power? And this question is for Representative Carson.
Was it him? Yes. Oh,
yes.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Forgive me.
Okay, I said, given the more dispersed nature
Right.
of hashtag activism
Yes.
and different social activism measures, what are some strategies to highlight the power of Black life, to focus the powers of Black expenditure and Black political power?
Well, I think social media has changed the game in terms of how we voice dissent. I think in many ways it's good. In many ways, to Light's point, when she saw Felicia's posting, she stayed in the loop. That's how I stay in the loop, quite frankly. But, with that, I tend not to go to every rally as a result. I'll post something on Instagram or Facebook and I'm done, but it generates a lot of hits, but I still miss the personal engagement that I would get from human interaction. But I think social media has played an important role, but it has also made us a bit more lazy, I think.
Yes. Yes.
I think when we can come together as a force and people in power see that force in real time, and it's a tangibility there that you don't get when I post something at 6 a.m. in the morning and go on about my day. But for us, it also means that, people don't even have high school reunions anymore because of Facebook like they used to. Why go to a high school reunion and you see their whole lives played out each and every day? But at the same time, social media has caused this room to be full. But I would like to see social media do more in terms of crowdfunding, in terms of helping efforts like WEAN, in terms of supporting political candidates. But in terms of the Black experience, we're going to have to tell our own story. We can't allow others to tell our story for us. If you really want to control the narrative and change the dynamic, use social media as leverage, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, or whatever platform it may be. Use it as leverage to not only raise funding, but to control your own dynamic and control your future, my brother.
At this time, DJ Beverly Bond, our inspirational panelist and our DJ for this afternoon, has to run. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you, and thank you all the panelists.
Thank you.
To the brother who took 7 MCs and put them in a line,
No doubt.
do you wish that what you've done had more influence on current MCs? I know there's constant comparisons to Nas. Eminem said, I'm a product of Rakim, but do you wish what you've done had more influence on the current MCs out there today?
Indeed so. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that when I sat down to start creating my albums and doing my thing, I wanted to make a mark. You know what I mean? I wanted people to reach for something. You know what I mean? I wanted them to see something, a little deeper than what we were seeing at the time. And of course, when you create something, you plant that seed, you want that tree to live forever. I feel what I did is relevant, you know what I mean, and the more that it can touch somebody, the more that it can influence somebody in any nature, I would want that to live forever. So definitely, man, I wish it did and I hope it does.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Allison, and the only thing I would like to say is I love music. I love most genre of music except for heavy metal. But I really would like to say this, please, I just ask you please to advocate for our children.
Yes, ma'am.
Please, I'm not talking about any rappers who are singing good music. Please, I beg you to clean up our lyrics for the sake of our children. A mind is a terrible thing to waste. And if we waste it on trash, garbage in, garbage out, and we really, really have to be sensitive to know that our minds are like a computer. Okay? So we just want to make sure our children are preserved and are putting positive lyrics into their spirits. Okay? That's all I can say.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say that we need to really look at hip hop like a candidacy, and we have a vote, and we need to cast that vote for the people who are speaking the language that we want to hear more of.
That's it.
My question is for Rakim. Understanding in this circle of life that the knowledge of your radius will determine the circumference of our actions, what advice would you give to a lot of these young MCs that are coming up, not to just be a rapper, but to own their own record labels? What, based on your experience?
Good question. I think in the beginning what they need to do is stay focused to their goal. Stick to their guns. Don't let nobody tell them what they should be saying. Speak from the heart. That resonates, over anything, and that'll show throughout the years that they are capable to get a record label or whatever business they're getting into by being true to yourself and true to the game. And of course, that's where it's at, man. My first album, of course, the title was Paid in Full. I figured that was one of the things that, when you sit down and say, you ask yourself, well, what's one of the main problems in the neighborhood, or what's one of the main problems? It all boils down to money. So I figured if I could push the listener to, think of, economics and his livelihood and things that's lucrative first, then what I'm saying will become a little more relevant because I'm not only saying don't do that, I'm trying to give them an outlet as well and say do it like this and maybe this will work. So, of course, man, being true to, what you're doing, understanding the value of it, and I think that's what the young artists and the young entrepreneurs need to hear and need to do. All right, yes, sir.
Thank you. He's telling me to keep it short. I have a very short question addressed to whoever wants to answer it. The attendance in the room shows the impact of the political power of hip hop. I want to thank Congressman Carson for having this. Could you please give us one takeaway as to what you would suggest as to how we can capitalize upon this interest to make some political change, not only for this election, but also for 2016? What can we go back home and do using hip hop to galvanize?
Yes, I heard MC Light say, Rev. I heard that. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
That's a great question. And so I think, one, to start with the end of that question, the voting is important. We have to vote. Voting, our numbers have gone up. They have ticked up over the past Felicia, you say 2008? 8, 10, 12 for our demographic. It has slowly, it's not as good as it needs to be. With that being said, and this is, and I want to make sure it's clear, I know, because she's my comrade, I know Angela's not a part of this component. But what I do want to say is this: as we discuss cleaning up our lyrics, and I was discussing cleaning up our air and our water, there's a connection there. There's a clear connection. When we're discussing the prison industrial complex and we're discussing the military industrial complex and we see that funding component, I just want to say this as a clear takeaway for us. This is our thing that we need to do. We should, before we come back here next year, should require that every CBC member does not take money from companies that hurt our community. Which means that every CBC member should not take money from the fossil fuel industry. They should not take money from the prison industrial complex, and they should not take money from the military industrial complex or the tobacco or anything that hurts our community. They should reject that, as well as the CBCF. And so our takeaway should be that we should call upon all of the CBC members and say, during the hip hop panel, we came together as a collective. And we don't like the fact, we think it hinders your voice in Congress. And so we think that you should not take money from those who are actually hurting our community. And then that should be the next step. That's one immediate step that we can look at to see who those members are. Because if members continue to take those corporate dollars that are clearly hurting our community, then we know whose side you are truly on. And so that's the one thing. The second thing is that I understand the resources and the funding so we can be here, but at the end of the day, this is the thing. The reality is this. 100 years from now, in 2114, nobody will be here unless you have some good medicine. But none of us will be here. But what will be here, and hopefully the CBC will still be here and it will grow. But the one thing that will be here is the precedent that we set as a moral standard to let that next generation, even unborn yet, let them know that we can stand up to injustice. We can speak truth to power. And even though it got uncomfortable, even though we had to take our CBC out of these wonderful halls and move down to Bishop John's church or Bishop Mary's church or down to the mosque, even though we got to do that, we stood up for you so you can see what it really means to speak truth to power.
How you doing? My name is Keith Bernard Dunwoody. I was the first to start off the magazine for the Black Caucus, which was done with Kodak film. But MC Light, you know me from Apollo. You know when I first started, you remember when I first started. I would still like to do one thing, and it's a history thing. It's a song that I had in my heart a long time ago. Would you like to do a song with me?
I would love to.
That's right. Oh, that's it right there.
See that woman right there? Let's get your info. Now you got the music done? Do I have anything to say about the music? Oh, you got it right there. Oh, shit.
That's right.
I came out with Gladys' name. It was right.
Now that he has us all crying, I wanted to allow you all the opportunity to give closing remarks, but I wanted to frame it in this way. We are at the 44th annual CBC Foundation Annual Legislative Conference. The purpose of this discussion, Hip Hop and Politics, is through a legislative lens. And we can talk about issues all day, but I want these folks to go. Some of them already have assignments, right? Y'all are writing those checks to those foundations you promised, right? But there are also some legislative steps they can take. They don't have to be elected officials. They can be concerned constituents. They can write to their state House and Senate members, and they can also write to U.S. House and Senate members. I want you all to just give us 2 to 3 policy areas of concern that the hip-hop generation should be focused on holding their members accountable to. And we can start, we're gonna start with the hip-hop congressman.
I'd have to say probably for me, and my wife is a principal, I'd have to say education. Because I know as someone who felt out of place in school, I think our current school curriculum produces a cookie cutter system. Most of us are visual learners. Some of us are auditory learners. Some of us are kinesthetic learners. We learn by building and touching things. We need to have legislation that puts more pressure on schools and ties funding to that legislation that forces schools to be more creative in terms of how they approach teaching younger people. And secondly, I talked to Rick Ross about this. I think we need to talk about economics and improving our economy. I have a financial literacy bill that I introduced, and it's a non-traditional bill that ties funding or grant funding with the Treasury Department. I met with educators. They say they would love to teach financial literacy in schools, but they can't because they're stretched thinly because of testing requirements. Well, I think we need to partner up with the financial services and banking community, come into our schools or come into our not-for-profits and teach financial literacy. So many kids are coming out of high school with debt from their parents, and so many schools don't even have a checking account. We're not trying to make people hedge fund managers, but we are trying to teach people basic concepts about financial literacy. Those are the two issues I would do.
I concur.
Thank you, Queen.
I was gonna say you took the words out of my mouth, man.
My man,
Education, you know, education, you know, is always the number one thing. Everything starts with that. You know, in the cities, you know, all over the world. I think with that and, you know, access to making a living for themselves. You know what I mean? If we can, you know, make more job offers, more ways to go to college so they can get better jobs and things of that nature. I think those are two of the things that I think will make a big difference, and I think neighborhoods and young kids agree with that too.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I think that one of, if not the greatest problem facing the black community and facing the hip hop community, and that we keep talking about in tertiary ways and we need to talk about in more direct ways, is ending the failed war on drugs. And this spans many issues in many different ways, but ultimately leads to a lot of young black and brown men and women basically having their lives ruined or at least deeply halted before they even get started, to where they get that early felony or early mark. And the pervasive nature of the war on drugs is that folks who are not actually in the drug trade are getting caught up in the war on drugs, right? So it's not just, you shouldn't have been doing that with Rick and his crew, whatever, when they were doing what they were doing, but I was just walking down the street on the wrong street and hotspot policing said, let's arrest him, or let's just stop and frisk him, and he happened to have a small bag of marijuana, because I need the stress, because the pigs are always on my ass, and the school sucks, and my uncle can't get a job, and I'm just trying to keep from losing my mind and going over the edge. You know, and then you get arrested, and then you can't get a job, then you're stuck checking the box the rest of your life.
Yeah.
So this idea of we don't have to check the box for the rest of our life. The idea of getting rid of mandatory minimums, which we have judges across the country saying, this is handcuffing me and this is lunacy and this is not making any sense. The idea of stop and frisk, which many police departments are saying, this is not good policing. The decriminalization of marijuana, which is happening in many states, not just Colorado and Washington, but in New York State now, right? It's being decriminalized in a lot of places. We need to be able to, I don't want people to just go around getting high, but as all of us know, it is very easy to acquire marijuana almost anywhere you want to. So the illegality of it doesn't make any sense. The profiling that goes along with the war on drugs doesn't make any sense. The idea that somebody could own a prison for profit doesn't make any sense, and leads to folks lobbying congressmen and senators say, please keep this illegal because otherwise I won't be able to fill my beds. And you know, the other thing that we saw in Ferguson, which is something that I hear folks want to deal with, the militarization of American police forces, where literally the stuff that we're done using in Iraq and Afghanistan is being transported to police departments in Bangor, Maine, and Naples, Florida, and Randolph, Massachusetts, and little towns that don't have major drug lords who they're going to have no-knock arrests and go and attack them. They don't want to be outgunned by the drug gangs. No, that is not happening. And the idea that this MRAP truck, right, and these armored policemen with these would show up in Ferguson pointing their guns at people who don't have guns, who don't have weapons. It's completely insane. It completely breaks the contract between the American police, the American government, and the American people. And that is something that we could end probably this year.
Wow.
Thank you. No, and Terry, I'm going to say almost everything you said. I was checking off the list As you were
You're
checking.
only supposed to have 2 or 3, Reverend Yearwood.
No, I was making sure we covered those, but this is the 2, since I didn't hear this. One, the drones issue is a huge issue, and I'm very much, and since we're talking about Councilman Carson, who's my phenomenal Muslim brother, and I love my Muslim brothers, and I'm very ashamed at how our country tries to criminalize our Muslim brothers and sisters, and how easily we bomb our Muslim brothers and sisters who are brown like us so easily. So I think the drone war is something, and I don't care if it's Bush or Obama who's bombing, we should be alarmed at that process. So the drone war is one, and then the other one that I mentioned earlier was President Obama's carbon pollution standards. That are very important, dealing with the pollution aspects. Annually, last year, 4.6 million people died due to air pollution. That is the reality. Asthma and cancer and bronchitis is killing our people. And let me just say this, and people are tweeting me, and you definitely can at Rev Yearwood. Somebody said we don't need labels and radio to put out music. We got artists, resources, the internet, and most importantly, the culture. And in that, we actually, Hip Hop Caucus, and I want to thank Light and Felicia and others who have been a part of us, our movement, from Hip Hop Haiti to Trayvon and others. The one thing around this issue that we actually put out a climate album recently. And so artists Neo, Common, El Varner, Raheem Devon, Crystal Waters all came together with producer Malik Youssef, who 6 Grammys with Kanye. They came together and they put out the music. So that's going to come out on October 21st, so you can get it. We're actually trying to work it so you can get it free, and so we're trying to make that happen. But if you go to thealbumhome.com, you can get all the information you want about that. And I just say this, the one last thing for us as a people in hip hop is love. I'm actually Dr. Yearwood. I got a doctorate, taught at Georgetown, former Air Force officer.
Wow.
And when I would go to churches to speak, and they would say, this is Reverend Yearwood, president of the Hip Hop Caucus, I would see folks would walk out on me. Wouldn't even hear me talk about Jesus. I couldn't even get to that part of the story. They would walk out.
Wow.
And I said, if you walk out on me, and I got a doctorate, a master's, a bachelor's, I was an Air Force officer, I got all that credentials. And you're gonna walk out on me because I'm hip hop? Then how you gonna treat that 16-year-old boy?
That's it.
Or that 18-year-old girl?
Yes, sir.
So let's begin to love our people, because I love you. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend.
So really quick, I'm sorry. Valicia Butterfield Jones, who is on the very end, she has to step out, so we're gonna have her close first. So your 2 to 3 policy issues, sis.
I'll make it 1.
Okay.
Jobs, jobs, jobs. No person should graduate from college and not be able to find employment. And so for me, that would be it. And then I also just want to encourage all of us collectively, as we prepare for 2016, to really make sure that we are civically engaged in our midterm elections and in 2016, regardless of, you know, what race or who we may have running for the presidency, but most importantly at the state and local level. So let's make sure that we're remaining civically engaged. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Felicia.
All right.
And our final closing comment.
Yeah, I would have to go with a couple. I would have to go with literacy, because I was 28 years old when I learned to read and write. And somehow the school system made me feel that I was too dumb to do that. But once in prison, I taught myself to write, read, and well enough to win my case. Even when my lawyers and prosecuting judges all thought that I was done, that I would never be out again. So that would be one. The next one would be the drug laws. Obama signed in a bill about 1.5 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, and quite a few people got out of prison. Disparity between the crack and the powder cocaine. But what they did, they made it 18-1, and they also didn't make it retroactive. Meaning that if a guy had been in jail, I know guys that's been in jail, went to jail 22 years old, he got a life sentence. If the law would have been retroactive, even at 18-1, he would only did 5 years in prison. He's been in jail about 25 years right now. I felt that if the law was wrong yesterday, then it was wrong 25 years ago, and then you should right that wrong. The other thing that I believe should happen, because what I notice about prison with some guys, like myself, when we went in prison, we started to study. We wanted to better ourselves. I believe that if a guy goes to prison and he betters himself to a certain level, maybe a standard, I don't know what the standard would be, but there should be some standard where a guy is able to come in, or a lady is able to come in and prove that they have improved themselves while they was in prison. I know one kid, he went to prison at like 24 years old. This kid graduated #1 at Berkeley University. They still didn't let him out of jail. They still made him do 35 years in prison for a nonviolent drug offense. He got caught with 4 keys of crack cocaine, and I felt that it was a time that he should have been released. You know, after he had proved that he could be top at Berkeley University, he got out a couple years ago. As soon as he got out, he went to work for Home Depot. He's a manager there now. He's doing real good. So it's a time that we should set as a people that people with nonviolent drug offenses should be let out of prison. They should not sit in prison and rot just because they were successful with selling drugs. I don't think that, in my mind, I don't think that nobody in the drug business is any culpable than anybody. I believe that drug users are just as culpable in the drug business as I was, because it was a time that I was totally green about selling drugs. I didn't know the color of cocaine. I didn't know what it smelled like. I didn't know what it looked like. I knew absolutely nothing. But drug users taught me. They taught me everything that I needed to know about drugs. They showed me how to work the triple beam. They wanted me to sell drugs. They were looking for somebody that was dependable, somebody that would give them their drugs on time, somebody that wouldn't cut their drugs, somebody that would give them a fair price for their drugs. So in my mind, what I came up with is that if you arrested all the drug dealers today, you go and take every last one of them off the streets. If you had a magic wand and you could just take them all off the streets, well, as soon as you did that, the drug users would start to create another one that next day. Thank you.
Thank you. We started with Ferguson, so let's also in there. We did not talk about much relating to body cams, but that is a legislative proposal on the floor, probably during lame duck. Pay attention to that. I also want to again thank Team Carson, Congressman Andre Carson, also for hosting this forum today. Know that you're here this week because of the Congressional Black Caucus. They're known as the conscience of the Congress for a reason. You all enjoy the rest of the annual legislative conference. Congressman Carson, anything?
Thank you, everybody.